Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Medici Effect, What Elephants and Epidemics Can Teach Us About Innovation, by Frans Johansson, narrated by Frans Johansson. Forward. One day, in the spring of 2001, I looked up from my desk at Harvard Business School to find a favorite MBA student from my 1999 creativity class standing in the doorway. It was Frans Johansson. I was delighted to see him because when he'd left HBS to pursue a burning idea he had for an entrepreneurial software venture, just one semester shy of finishing his MBA, I thought he'd never return. But here he was, enrolled again to finish that degree. With his characteristically warm smile, Frans settled his lanky form into a chair and made a common request. Could I possibly advise him in an independent study project? I assumed that, as with most of my students, his project involved creating a business plan for yet another startup. But not this time. This student's proposal, in my experience, was completely unique. Frans had an idea for a book on creativity, and the idea would not leave him alone. He felt he had to act on it. I had written books on creativity, so would I lend my expertise as he ventured into this new territory? Intrigued, I invited him to tell me more. The big idea that Frans described to me that day became the core of his marvelous book, The Medici Effect. Breakthrough creativity happens at the intersection of different fields, ideas, people, and cultures. Once he'd hatched this concept, he saw intersectional creativity everywhere. He told me story after story of people he'd met in science, the arts, business, cuisine, and a plethora of other domains who'd had their breakthroughs when they combined things in ways that initially seemed crazy. Frans's stories were fascinating, and his determination to write this book was impressive. I had an inkling that he was onto something important, so I agreed to supervise his independent study project. Little did I know where that project would lead. It led to a novel, game-changing treatise on innovation. To be sure, the idea that creativity results from new, unexpected combinations did exist in the theoretical creativity literature, and a few lab experiments had suggested its validity. But as far as I knew, no one had gone into the real world to investigate the phenomenon of intersectional creativity in the wild, explore its manifestations, and see if it actually had an impact on innovation in a way that mattered. No one had written about how to do it. Frans was determined to find out, and he spent the next 2 years of his life reading voraciously, talking about his idea to everyone who would listen, traveling the globe to interview some of the most innovative individuals and teams on the planet, writing their compelling stories and tying it all together with his breathtakingly elegant thesis. The central tenet of the Medici Effect is that diversity drives innovation. Frans shows how and why combining ideas from different fields, disciplines, industries, and cultures increases the probability of inventing something remarkable. What Frans brought to the table, beyond the painstaking research required to develop these ideas, was a vivid vision that made them come to life. His examples spanned the world and presented a stunning array of intersections between fields ranging from cooking, gaming, and music to neuroscience, mathematics, and architecture. Frans was able to show that once we train ourselves to step back from our habitual way of viewing concepts, linearly, one-directionally, in black and white, we're able to see that intersections exist everywhere. And what happens when we harness the power of intersections is simply revolutionary. Since its original publication in 2004, The Medici Effect has truly revolutionized the way that business leaders and professionals all over the world think about innovation. It has inspired students, architects, technologists, scientists, business leaders, executives, and countless others to break out of their comfort zones and embrace uncertainty as a necessary tool for creating new products, processes, and ideas. I have seen this impact firsthand with my own students at HBS, who had the benefit of a personal visit from France when I assigned the Medici effect in my course. Many of them have told me over the years how they applied his ideas and techniques to building their businesses or creating new products and services. I wasn't surprised to learn that the book has been used in courses at universities worldwide, including the University of California, Berkeley, and Singapore Management University. As I visit companies and speak at innovation conferences, I am struck by how the book's influence seems to grow each year. It has influenced how leaders across fields think about a wide range of areas, from diversity and inclusion inside organizations to economic development around the world. I expect the influence of the Medici effect to only grow over time. At its first publication in 2004, people everywhere were talking increasingly about how the world was becoming more connected. Yet few of us then could have imagined the scope and scale of global connections today. Facebook, for instance, was just being invented in a dorm room across the river from HBS. LinkedIn didn't even exist when Frans and I had our first conversation about these ideas. His book is about how to find, explore, and make the most of the unusual connections that are now at our fingertips. There has never been a more promising point in history for those who understand the power of connecting people and, more importantly, who understand the best ways to bring together people from starkly different backgrounds. The Medici effect is even more applicable today than it was 13 years ago, so this is just the right time for its re-release. Work settings worldwide are much more diverse, with people interacting more and more across geographies, cultures, fields, and disciplines. In order to keep pace with the direction the world seems to be racing towards, a frictionless, information-driven, interconnected playing field, leaders will have to break down the silos that separate people's minds and abilities to work together. This book shows the 21st century leader exactly how to do that. Thinking back on that spring of 2001, I doubt that any of France's fellow MBA graduates would have pegged him as the author type. France was known as an entrepreneur, the maker, the go-getter. With most of his fellow graduates setting out on lucrative careers in finance or consulting, many were stunned that Frans resolved to follow his passion and write a book on a largely unexplored, unproven topic. I'm confident that the countless firms, organizations, governments, and leaders touched by the Medici effect are awfully glad that he did. Teresa M. Amabile, Harvard Business School. Preface: An Unexpected Journey to the Intersection. 1. Some ideas come to you slowly, maturing at a measured pace. Others come to you quickly, in a moment of sudden inspiration. The idea behind this book was of the latter kind. I woke up one morning in March 2001 with a stark vision in my mind's eye. The image was simple: two bright beams of light intersecting. The reason this vision held my attention, however, was anything but simple. In my vision, these light beams did not just represent light, as you would see it from, say, a flashlight or a laser. Instead, each of the light beams represented a different field or culture. When I looked more closely, I could see each cone of light filled with smaller bits or pieces, such as you might see in a TV documentary about atoms or molecules. They were floating around, bouncing into each other. Each of these gleaming atoms or molecules represented a specific piece of knowledge or unique concept within the given field. Within seconds, a couple of things became clear. The first was this: if new ideas are combinations of existing ideas, which was something I had been considering and reading about for a while, then in this vision one could easily see how new knowledge was created. As the ideas and concepts kept bouncing into each other, they would sometimes stick and form new combinations. These new ideas could, in turn, form yet other combinations. The second insight was this: if more ideas lead to better ideas, a creativity rule I had heard mentioned on occasion, then the intersections between two fields should favor innovation, because instead of adding the number of total idea combinations in each field, You are now multiplying them.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?